MDOT presents the Extra Mile Podcast.
Welcome in to the latest edition of the Extra Mile Podcast presented by the Mississippi Department of Transportation. I'm Paul Catul, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Will Kraft, and today's guest is awesome. He attended both the Harvard of the South, Ole Miss, and also actual Harvard Law School. That, of course, is Mississippi State Auditor Shad White. Shad, we've been looking forward to this a while. Thank you so much for coming in.
Me. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So I feel like I kind of know you just keeping up with your social media presence, and as communications professionals, you do a great job. So really just like how's life going? We see you working out. How's the family? How's everything?
Yeah, life is good. So our kids are 2, 4, and 6 now, so life is crazy. Our weekends are soccer, and this weekend we went to the fair and church and more soccer and trying to keep a bunch of babies entertained. That's the name of the game right now.
Love it.
Absolutely, yeah. And Paul jokingly mentioned this, but I'm going to give you a shout out for sure. We're undertaking a bit of a get healthier initiative around here. So you've been posting the workout videos, getting out there, man. How's that? Everything going well?
Yeah. So I'm in the National Guard, and there's always been an emphasis in the military on physical fitness. But you may have seen the Secretary of War the other day gave a speech where he said that we're going to start doing PT tests twice a year. So I was like, I got to up my game a little bit.
Sure.
And then he does hard PT too. They did the Hegseth Challenge where you do the 50 pull-ups and 100 push-ups in 10 minutes. And so that's probably the video that you saw the other day. I turned 40 and I was like, all right, I'm going to try this Hegseth thing. And I'll do it on camera. Why not? And so anyway, I made it through. I was not having fun by the end. By the end, my arms were jelly, and I was done for the day after that.
No way I'm doing 50 pull-ups. Not even a chance.
You can get there.
Let's do it, Will.
Maybe with some help. Y'all gonna have to hold my legs. Help me out.
Paul can stand under you and lift you.
That would absolutely be the requirement.
We'll post that.
Yeah.
There we go. We can get our social going back around that way for sure. Well, look, again, thank you so much for being here. I know you got a busy schedule, but just at the very top level here, for those that might not know, what all does the Office of the State Auditor have covered?
Yeah. So our big picture mission is we try to make sure that taxpayer money is spent the way that the law requires. And we do that through performance of routine audits. So we'll go audit county governments, we audit state agencies like MDOT, we audit school districts. And then in addition to that, if we find that somebody is potentially stealing any government funds or government property, we have an investigations division. So that's men and women who have been to the police academy. They're trained in criminal investigations. They've got guns on their hips and badges, and they go out and they do criminal investigations into alleged theft of government funds. And at the end of an investigation, if we believe somebody has stolen government money, we don't have the right to prosecute those cases. What we do is we take our findings to a prosecutor, and the prosecutor will make a decision about whether or not they want to go forward and take those findings to a grand jury and seek a criminal indictment on that individual. So that's what we do in the office, and of course we have support staff who help make that happen, and we have a team of analysts who are constantly looking into how government spends money to try to find examples of waste or inefficient programs, and it's a really fun and fulfilling job. I love it. We have about 130 people in the auditor's office right now, and they're all a team of very, very skilled professionals. So we're an office of technical professionals, so CPAs, attorneys, career investigators, support staff, and those folks could very easily go out in the private sector and make much more money in the private sector, but they stay at the auditor's office, I think, because I'm a really cool guy and fun to work for.
That's right, absolutely.
That's not the reason. The real reason is that they love the work. They love the mission of the auditor's office, and they love the fact that when they go home on Fridays, just like I do, they think, we did a thing this week that actually made a difference for Mississippi.
Right. Absolutely. Some of the smartest and most wonderful people I've had the opportunity to work with over there at the auditor's office. I think most of them have now retired and are enjoying the other side of life. But
yeah, when you were there, that's right.
Yeah,
you've seen it. Yeah,
it was a very good group of people over there for sure. Quick on that topic of things that y'all do and covering. What may be some of the crazier things as far as beat your head against the wall? Can't believe someone thought that they were going to get away with this, so to speak. Anything that comes to mind? I just am a little shocked at some of these people maybe stealing cash or embezzling, however you want to frame it. Did you think you weren't going to get caught?
Yeah. Yeah, it's surprising sometimes. And I think the big cases with big dollar amounts, those tend to be the ones that make their way into the newspaper.
Sure.
And so folks read about those. But honestly, some of the smaller cases are the ones where you bang your head against the wall and you think, how did you think that this was going to be okay and that no one was going to notice? So we've had cases, multiple cases, where, an employee at a water department of a city, for example, will have a customer come in trying to pay their water bill. So Will pays his water bill, and he wants to pay in cash. And so if I'm the clerk, what I do is I look and I'll see, Will owes $200. Well, what I'll do is I'll just void out the owed payment on the computer system. I'll take the $200. I'll tell Will, yep, you paid your bill. You think you paid your bill. Mm-hmm. What I know is that I just voided out your debt in the system. Now I have $200 cash. And so then they'll stuff it down their shirt. And we've had people do that on camera. Like there'll be a camera sitting up there, and they'll do it on camera. So the reason I describe that scheme in detail is we're watching for that scheme.
Sure.
Don't do that. If you're out there, don't do that. We're watching for that scheme. And we've had multiple people who have done that in the past few years. And so every time we get another one, I'm just sort of shocked that somebody thought that was a good idea and that they could just walk out with the shirt, with their cash stuff down their shirt. And
like the Wild West, man.
Yeah, it's like the Wild West. And it's interesting for our agents because they have to watch the video feed and try to see how many dollars go into the bra, It's like 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's how much we're going to get that person for. But it's wild. Those are the kinds of crazy cases, some of the smaller ones that you just think.
Just don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it, folks.
Don't do it.
Your whole life for $1,000.
Absolutely, that's a better point. Yeah, if I'm gonna risk my my reputation and namesake, it's gonna be enough to I'm gonna go buy an island or two.
I appreciate you being honest.
Yeah,
if Will ends up in the Caymans, we'll know what happens. That's right.
There will be signs.
There will be signs.
He's
in a non-extradition territory.
That's right.
That's the sign. Yeah.
He's thought about this.
Just running it by, floating this by. So I mentioned it earlier. You, of course, went off from Mississippi after graduating from Ole Miss, went to Harvard Law, and Rhodes Scholar and everything. But what's really cool, we're big Mississippi people here. Both me, Will, Drew. You decided to come back, and that's awesome. So why did you decide to come back? And talk about your love of Mississippi. Really.
Yeah. I love growing up in Mississippi. I grew up in a town of 700 people, and when you're growing up, I think everybody has this sense of wonder about what else is out there in the world, and maybe the grass is greener, and you go out and I did that. So I grew up in rural Mississippi, and I went to Ole Miss, and then I left for a period. And I think the more time I spent away, the more I wanted to get back, the more I realized that I wanted to raise my family here. Sure. And so what really sealed the deal for me is I was in Massachusetts at Harvard, and I got maybe, I guess it was a year in. And at the end of your first year of law school, there's this period where you do interviews for law firms who are looking to hire for summer clerkships. And typically, if you get a summer clerkship with that firm, they're going to make you a full-time job offer at the end of law school. So these interviews are a big deal because they're determining, where you're going to go work after law school. And I had a decision to make. All these firms are coming in from Wall Street and from Washington, D.C. and big cities. And I thought, well, if I interview with these firms, I'm sort of starting down a path where I'm going to have to work for them in a big city for a little while. But if I'm really serious about coming back to Mississippi and raising a family here, giving back to Mississippi, I'm going to have to make a call right now about whether I want to do that. So I decided that week that all these firms were coming to Harvard Law to do the interviews, I decided that I wanted to go home instead and interview with Mississippi law firms. And so I did that. I purposefully skipped the week where all these law firms from big cities were coming to HLS to Harvard, went home, did a bunch of interviews around Mississippi with a bunch of different law firms. And I even had one law firm interview where a partner said to me, look, we think it's great that you're interviewing for a summer clerkship with our firm. Why would we hire you for a summer clerkship when it seems like what you're probably going to do is you're going to come to us for a summer, you're going to take our paycheck for a summer, and then you're going to go to a big city after that. Mm-hmm. And I said, no, actually, I am here on the week that all those firms are interviewing back at the law school, so I've burned the boats behind me. So you can either give me a job here or I'm going to live under a bridge in Mississippi. These are the two roads that I've left for myself. And so that firm actually ended up offering me a summer clerkship and a full-time job offer too. So I had to make that decision early, and I think what drove it is I'd been other places. and I just realized that I love Mississippi. I wanted to be near my family. I think the state has more potential than any other state in the entire country, and I've lived multiple other places. I think we've got some challenges on the horizon that we're going to have to meet, obviously, but I do feel like the life here is better. My commute to work is shorter. Your ability to buy your first home is easier here. Your ability to work in a job that you find meaningful, I think, is easier at a younger age here. It's just a great place. It's a great place to live and to grow.
Absolutely.
Co-sign all that for
Yeah.
sure.
Same. Yeah, just as Paul said, we like it around here. And again, as I'm raising a family too, I couldn't imagine doing it anywhere else. I don't get to the big city too often, but when I do, I'm just sort of blown away by how different it is, and that's just a different environment.
I have friends that live in Atlanta and talking about traffic and infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, their drive to work one way every day is hour 15, hour 30.
That's crazy.
And
Wow.
they got to do it at the end of every day. I have friends in, Washington, D.C. and New York who, fight crime and homelessness on their way to work every single day. Daycare is prohibitively expensive in some of these cities.
I believe it.
I mean, it's just, and they're not near their family. So, if you want to take your husband or wife on a date night on a Friday night, you're hiring,
Yep.
a nanny to come in and watch your kids. Like, these are very, very difficult things, I think. And for people who want a much easier life where you can give back and feel fulfilled, Mississippi is the place to be.
I love it. Again, cosign, as you said right there. Well, look, talking about that, you guys have enacted some initiatives to sort of help with that as much as you can. What are some of those that defend the SIP and the brain drain initiatives you guys are working on?
Well, I noticed that when I came into office, we, like a lot of Mississippi agencies and businesses, we had a hard time recruiting talented students straight out of undergrad. So I asked my HR manager at the time, maybe my first year in office, how many people have we recruited straight out of accounting schools to come work at the auditor's office, and in the last 3 or 4 years? And she said, "Oh, none." And I said, "None is not a good number. We've got people retiring every day, and none in the pipeline coming in is not a good number. What have you been doing?" And she says, "Well, I go to the schools and I put out the pamphlets and I talk about what the auditor's office does, and we don't have any interest." And so I realized that we're going to have to do more than that. A lot of students who are graduating from very good accounting schools in Mississippi are saying, "You know what, I can make more money in Dallas. It's going to be interesting to live in Nashville or Atlanta. And my professors are telling me to go work at a big fancy firm anyway." And so that's what they end up doing. So I said, we're going to have to do more than just put the pamphlets out. Let's start a program. So we started a program called Stay in the SIP. And you can go to stayinthesip.com and learn more about it. I'm still shocked we got that URL from Lane Kiffin.
Right.
But the basics of the program are these. If you've finished your first 2 years at an accounting program anywhere in Mississippi, we will pay for your third and fourth year of your accounting degree and potentially your master's. But in exchange for that, you got to give me something, sort of like the military. I'm going to give you something, and you got to give me some time. So you've got to come and work at the auditor's office for a minimum of 2 years after that. And the program has completely solved our recruiting challenge.
Awesome.
So we've,
Nice.
I believe we have 11 or 12 right now students who have taken part in that program. I'll give you an example of one. Last year, a young woman named Abney Brewer, who's still working in the auditor's office, she was one of our fellows. She was the #1 top scorer on Mississippi's CPA exam. So this is, in the CPA world, this is a very big deal. They call it their gold medal winner. They give her a trip down to Florida, and they celebrate her. It's a big, big deal. To my knowledge, nobody who works at the auditor's office has ever been the gold medal winner in Mississippi. And she works at the state auditor's office. And she'll tell you, if she were sitting here on the podcast, she'll tell you, I would not be in Mississippi if not for the Stay in the SIP program.
Wow.
She's got a master's in data analytics from the Patterson School at Ole Miss. This is the exact kind of person that gets recruited to giant firms to make a lot of money in Dallas or New York or Atlanta. And so we're grateful to have students like, I say students, young professionals like Abney, and we think it's a little way to combat this brain drain that we've been talking about and seeing around the state. My hope is that not only will this help us solve our recruiting problem at the auditor's office, but also other state agencies will do programs like this, and then other private companies will start doing programs like this. I've heard private employers say, I'd never thought about doing something quite like that, but I run a chain of hotels. I had a buddy of mine who runs a chain of hotels. He said, I run a chain of hotels. Maybe I need to set up a program where I go to hospitality management majors and say, hey, I'll pay for your last year of school if you'll come work for me for a couple of years. And so we're hoping this becomes a model for keeping more talented people here.
Absolutely. I mean,
That's
2 years, my end of the bargain would 2 years. I mean, I've heard of some of these other programs. That's pretty short. I mean, that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah. And the way we structure it is it's a minimum of 2 years. But if we pay for more school than that, so like if we paid for 2 years and 9 months of your school, you got to give us 2 years and 9 months.
That's very fair.
Very fair.
And the hope is that at the end of 2 years and 9 months, let's say, for a student, the hope is that they bought a house here, they met somebody here, they found a church here, and they put down a few roots here, and now they're going to think, well, do I really want to uproot all of this and move to Atlanta, and work 6 days a week in a cubicle and, leave my girlfriend or boyfriend here? Hopefully the answer is no.
Right.
Hopefully they want to stay here after that. And we've had students who stayed here in the auditor's office. We have students who are very upfront with us, and they say, look, I'm going to do my 2.5 years that you helped pay for, and then I am going to law school, actually, because I want to be a prosecutor. So I've got my accounting background. I'm going to get my auditor time here, my training at the auditor's office, and then I'm going to go do law school. And we say, more power to you.
Yeah.
Have at it. It's great for us still because we actually make money off of them in their 2-year window at the auditor's office because they audit and then they bill typically the federal government when they're doing those audits. So it's really a good deal for everybody.
That's great. And then you've got some others, right? I think the Defend the SIP.
Defend the SIP, yeah. So we're just going to keep with the SIP theme for as long as possible.
Absolutely.
So there's this other problem that we noticed for young lawyers who just graduate law school here in Mississippi. Many of them go on to join the military like I did, but there's this gap between when they graduate law school and when they go off for their first military training. Sometimes it's a gap of months and months. So what we said is, look, these are talented people who have proven their ability to get a law degree, and the military wants them, so they're great workers. Let's give them a fellowship for that window between graduation and their first military training where they can come and work in the auditor's office. They typically help us with legal research on, helping answer questions about when folks can and can't spend government money, around investigations research. Hey, we've done this investigation. Will this stand up in court? So we've got one Defending the SIP fellow in the auditor's office right now. She's doing a great job, and she'll go off for her military training at the beginning of 2026. And really, I think this program is another example of getting people into the auditor's office. Maybe long run they come back, or they come back to Mississippi. It's been a great partnership with us and MC Law School. So they have a ton of students who want to join the military. So they've been feeding talent to us to consider. So another good program that is just helping us keep talented people here for a little bit longer.
Absolutely. And before you get into the other ones, I just want to say I do remember I did some recruitment work for the auditor's office back in the day. I can remember going to the recruitment fairs. We'd have our booth, maybe a couple of pamphlets. Some of these larger firms would be next to us, with like a Dunkin' booth and like cakes and cookies.
It's hard to compete.
It's pretty tough out there.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Commending.
But if you can
hard
give
work.
people an incentive, even if it's a small incentive, like you don't have to pay tuition for the next year.
That's pretty big.
That's a huge psychological push for those students because it tells them we want you and we're willing to give up something to get you here. And I think that just being desired and also thinking, giving a place a second look and thinking, hey, could I see myself at that spot? This is going to be more money in my pocket today. That's all the push that we needed to get more talented people in the door.
Those are excellent
Kudos.
Really, really excellent programs. Very cool to see. So you mentioned on the first one, saying SIP. Is her name Abigail, you said?
Abney.
Abney.
Yep.
My bad. So you mentioned she has a background in data analytics.
Yep.
So are you guys using AI or any like predictive modeling or anything like that?
Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of the really useful AI predictive modeling is still a little bit too expensive for the office. But we have used 2 or 3 different AI machine learning tools over the course of the last, I'd say, 3 years. So what we've done is we'll use AI models that are proprietary and are run by a third party, so like a company. So it might be Horn CPA, or it might be, we had a company in New York who did this for us. And we'll pull them in, and what they do is run their AI machine learning model over Magic. And for people who don't know what Magic is the program in state government that records all of the expenditures of state agencies. So they'll run the AI model over Magic and all the expenditures in state government, looking for fraud. So they're looking for suspicious actors. So, for example, if you had somebody at MDOT, I'll just pick on MDOT.
Please,
why not?
yes.
We're here.
For sure.
If you had somebody at MDOT who was at a P.O. box, and they had forwarded contracts, road paving contracts, to a company that also happened to be at that P.O. box. That might be very difficult for an auditor to pick up. But if you have that information buried in thousands and thousands of transactions, an AI algorithm could find that pretty easily. And so that's the kind of thing that they would be looking for, that AI algorithm would be looking for. So if anybody's out there who's done that, your time is limited. So that's the kind of thing we've used AI for in the past. We typically have used these programs on a one-off basis. So, we'll run that model over Magic, but it will be too expensive to keep running it over and over and over again. So then we'll stop, and then we might come back a year later and do something else like that. But that's an example of how we use AI in the auditor's office.
That's awesome.
Stuff I haven't even thought about. Great question.
The future is now.
Yeah, so this is part of the fun of it, is like we can think of something in the auditor's office that helps us catch fraud, and then we're not going to tell a soul about it until like 3 years later, right? And so
As you should, yeah.
And so then people are like, how did I get caught? Well, like the machines found you. This is the way it is.
Skynet is on our side right now.
Yeah, that's right. That's for the moment. For the moment, they're on our side.
We're gonna hopefully keep it. I make sure I tell Alexa thank you after every question.
She remembers you when the apocalypse comes.
Fingers
Yeah,
crossed.
that's right.
That's hilarious.
And so again, kudos to all that. I mean, you guys are killing it over there. What about anything, other major projects, initiatives that you guys are kind of launching, just launched, working on?
Really, one of the big ongoing projects that we've worked on for the last few years is just looking for waste in state government. So when I came into office, we were doing the traditional audits, we were doing our criminal investigations, but I wanted to put a greater emphasis on looking for waste and inefficiency inside government, even if the money wasn't being stolen or misappropriated. Sure. And actually, one of the first times we did that was with MDOT. So
that's right.
The legislature, when I first came into office, passed a bill that instructed the auditor's office to do a performance audit of MDOT. And so we came in, we hired a firm who are transportation experts and did a big performance audit of MDOT and looked at everything from how MDOT was managing its fleet of vehicles all the way to, do we have too many rest stops, like everything in between. And I really enjoyed that project, and Director Brad White has used that report to make improvements here. And so I think those projects have benefit for state agencies. And since then, we've really tried to keep going and expand those, look at other agencies. When you look at the whole of what we've uncovered, our estimate is that we've uncovered about $800 million of recurring waste across state government every single year in state agencies. And a lot of that is in procurement, how state agencies buy stuff. We got some state agencies that'll buy TV screens for $5,800 a pop. A lot of it is in fleet management. Again, like our state as a whole spends more on cars, fuel, and travel than does Louisiana, than does Arkansas, than does Iowa. So these are other similar states, rural states, where their state employees have to drive a good bit. So that's the kind of stuff that we enjoy looking at in the auditor's office. The challenge with being an auditor is you can identify all of this waste, but you can only audit. You can't actually fix it. So I can't go to DFA, a state agency, and say, hey, change what you're doing.
Right.
All I can do is say, here's an issue, and it's costing us money, and here's a better way of doing it. But I do think the more that we produce these studies and the more I talk about it, the more likely it is that the next crop of elected officials will actually take it seriously and will say, hey, yeah, we do need to make these changes and we need to cut the fat. I also think it's just going to be necessary to find these savings over the course of the next few years. So we have constant needs in infrastructure. We have constant needs for higher teacher pay. Unfortunately, our teachers are now, again, among the worst paid in the entire country, especially when you look at other states that are raising their teacher pay very, very quickly. Arkansas just passed a $13,000 teacher pay increase.
Okay.
So Mississippi's going to have to try to keep up. Our police need to be paid more. I mean, homicides are still a huge problem in the state of Mississippi on a per capita basis. We have massive tax cuts that are going to be phased in over the course of the next few years, which is going to be good for our economy. But also, we've got to make sure that we're trimming government in a smart way so that we're not cutting critical services as we do that. So it's going to be important in the next decade to use all of these audits and to actually cut the fat where we can.
And that number you said is $800 million
Yep.
recurring a year?
Recurring every single year, right. So that would be a massive teacher pay cut. That would be a lot of road and bridge miles. You can tell me how much. It's a lot of money.
Is that more than our rainy day fund, I believe?
I'm sure it is. Yeah, I'm
that's a
sure
good
it is. Yep.
And how dare you go find all that?
That's
I'm
right.
telling you, $800 million. That's crazy. I didn't know it was that much.
And we're trying to lead by example, too, in the auditor's office. So this past year, I told my team, look, we've been finding all this waste in all these other agencies. What waste can we find in our own agency?
Sure.
We need to be leading by example. And so we've tried to be frugal with state funds over the course of the last few years. This past year, we actually asked for $1 million less from the general fund than we got in the previous year. And yeah, to your point, Will, when I asked that of the legislature, you would have thought that I had kicked a puppy in the street or something. There were lawmakers who were like, how dare you come in here and ask for less? We've never heard anybody do that. But that's what we're called to do. I think as state agency heads and as elected officials, we're called to find savings if they're there. And in this case, we were able to figure out how to use less general fund money. And so I'm thankful for the fact that, by the time I leave office, I think we will be spending less out of the general fund than when I got into office 7 years ago.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
High marks, yeah.
You mentioned, the audit of MDOT, and we're huge fans of efficiency here, both at MDOT and in public affairs. And this is a transportation podcast, so we'll ask you, why is it important, as a core function of government to have a strong, efficient transportation network?
It's obviously very critical, and I mean, I think about it every day when I drive down Lakeland Drive. We live out in Rankin County, and I drive down Lakeland to come in. And Lakeland has been obviously this huge corridor of traffic for as long as I can remember, and just had new paving work done on it. And I mean, it makes a huge difference to our daily lives. I do think that this is, going back to our brain drain conversation, I do think that our infrastructure is actually a huge selling point for getting people back here, right? When I talk to friends who live somewhere else, one of the things that they're sick of the most is their commute into and out of work. And maybe during COVID there was a lot more telework happening and you didn't hear as much about that, but I think a lot of offices in big cities are demanding that people come back into the office now. And so folks should use that as an opportunity to say, do I want to keep driving an hour every day? Do I want to fight traffic? Do I want to, have to walk down the street past a homeless encampment in San Francisco? Or do I want to move back home to Mississippi? So I think infrastructure itself is a huge, huge selling point for the state of Mississippi if we properly maintain it, right? If we keep up with capacity needs. Those are the big ifs. And so I'm grateful for the work y'all are doing. We've been talking about the stuff that we do in the auditor's office, but I'm grateful for the work y'all are doing every day, because it makes life better and easier for families to get to work and for businesses to ship their goods around the state, and it's critical. It's critical.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
I appreciate you saying those things. Look, we got a couple more questions here for you, the lighter side of things, if you will. But anything else that your office is working on or looking forward to that you wanted to mention before we move?
Well, I think that there is big interest in our universities right now, and especially in the, not to be too dark, but in the wake of the political assassination of Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk would go around to universities and really challenge students to think for themselves and think about topics in new ways. And I think that shined a light on the fact that at a lot of our universities, there's things that are being taught that really conflict with the values of everyday people. And a lot of times at our public universities, those things are being subsidized by taxpayer dollars. And so we're going to continue shining a light on what's going on at our universities. And my challenge to our universities in the long run is we have to focus less on these kinds of odd ideologies, and we have to focus much more on generating graduates who can be productive citizens in Mississippi's economy. I'll give you a very quick example of a conversation I had with one of our university presidents. We were talking about their university and the future of the workforce, and he told me, he said, well, Shad, I need as many kids coming in here majoring in anthropology as possible. And I said, I think I know why, but tell me why. And he said, well, it's very cheap to educate an anthropology major. I mean, all I have to do is they have to have books, and the professors are pretty cheap because the professors really can't go do anything else as anthropologists, and I got to put a roof over their head, and that's it. And if you look at the anthropology curricula today, it's pretty wild. It's a lot of crazy classes, the history of sexuality and hip hop and the development of shopping malls and pop culture in America.
Oh, wow.
And it's not super conducive to jobs here in Mississippi, which is a reason why, if you look at the data, most anthropology majors who graduate from Mississippi universities leave the state within 3 years. And the ones that do stay make less than $25,000 a year. It's not great. So I asked him, all right, so you want to educate all these anthropology majors because it's cheap to educate them. And it's expensive to educate a civil engineer, for example. What are all these anthropology majors going to do when they graduate? And he very bluntly said, not my problem.
Oh.
And I said, it is your problem. It is your problem because the state taxpayers spend money on this university. We give you money to educate students. So you should be giving some of your thought to how do I create graduates that can get a job here in the state of Mississippi and give back. That's why we spend taxpayer money to educate other people and give it to you. And so we've got to do a better job. The state needs to do a better job of making sure that these universities have their eye on that ball, that they're trying to create productive citizens that can stay here and work. And that's honestly going to mean a greater subsidy for, say, civil engineering majors, and it's going to mean less subsidy for gender studies programs. It just is. It makes no sense that the state will send as much money to educate an anthropology major as we do a civil engineer.
Right.
It makes no sense at all, just based on the cost of education. So that's the other big thing that we're going to continue working on in the auditor's office.
Well, and I'm all for that. I would just add, I mean, it is a little bit interesting from the standpoint of that university professional, not their problem, you know. I feel like it hasn't been that long ago when I was graduating high school and going to college. And that's exactly what I wanted from those people that I was going. I looked up to those university professionals. I wasn't necessarily looking for them to tell me the cheapest route to get out of college, but how to be, you know, how to go forth and produce Benjamins, as they say.
Yeah.
You know, and be a productive citizen. Which path should I take for a good life, sir, ma'am, whoever, you know, my advisor. And if their mentality is just the bottom line, well, yeah, that's kind of horrifying, to be honest.
It's not even your bottom line, right? It's
Exactly.
their bottom line. It's their balance sheet that he was worried about. The state of Georgia does a much better job than we do of telling students about this. So there's a website, you can go to it. I mean, it's produced by the state of Georgia, and it will tell you if you're an incoming college freshman and you're going to major in economics, which is what I majored in. If you're going to major in economics, here's what you can expect to make in any job if you stay in Georgia, and here's what you can expect to make if you leave Georgia. And so students can go and look and they can say, all right, well, I have a passion for ballet. What are my chances of making it as a professional ballerina, and how much am I going to make? And they can see the dollar total.
I love
and
that.
then,
That's good.
and then if you still have a passion for ballet, you might look at that number and say, maybe I'm going to also double major in accounting. You know, like maybe I'm going to try to get something slightly more practical while I'm at university here. And if they make those decisions, if they have that information, they make those decisions, they're going to be better off in the long run. They're not going to be saddled with debt. They're not going to be forced to move to a place that they don't want to go. They can stay in Georgia if that's where they're from. So we can be doing stuff like that in Mississippi. We just have to have a little bit more common sense about how we're funding our universities and what we're telling our students.
Thank you. I couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
For sure. Hey, great conversation.
That's right.
To have, and nothing more than the fun questions, right?
That's right. And I'll wrap this thing up here.
For sure.
As we mentioned, we as a podcast, as a people, we love to eat and we like to listen to music.
Indeed.
I'll ask the food question for you today, Paul. If you're in the state, maybe in the Jackson Metro or traveling on the road, is there maybe a spot that you don't get to go to very often that is just, we're going to be in that neck of the woods, I got to go get me a tamale, whatever it may be?
Yeah. All right. So we talked about being healthy earlier. Let's just throw that out the window right now.
Let's do it.
Absolutely.
I love Shady Acres on Highway 49. Have you been there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's right on Highway 49, just outside of Hattiesburg. And again, I don't recommend this every day, but they have the best cookies in the world. I think they're called Southern Deluxe, maybe,
Oh, wow.
and they have like everything in them. So if you go down 49 outside Hattiesburg, Shady Acres has great food, period, but really good cookies too. So I hate to say it, but I'm a cookie guy. So I'll stop at Shady Acres if I'm going through there.
I love
That's
that.
the first thing that came to mind when you asked
It's a
me that.
fantastic place. And you can get
Yeah.
you a double cheeseburger, get you the cookies,
Yeah.
and you can go get you some fresh homemade ice cream right around the corner. And
Yeah.
They have like a preserves and jams, jellies closet with just all the things you can think
A
of.
lot of local
Yes.
vegetables and preserves and stuff like that. It's a really good shop local kind of place.
This podcast brought to you by Shady Acres. No, just kidding. No. Do love
Where's
that
my
place.
royalty check?
Yes.
Dang
Yeah.
it!
on.
Yeah.
Do love that place though. Excellent suggestion.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That's a good one. And hey, there's really nothing wrong with a cheat day.
That's
you know,
right.
That's right.
Balance,
Yeah,
balance,
that's right.
balance.
That's right.
Okay, so Will mentioned we love food. We also love music, especially in public affairs here. Lots of concert goers. So is there a
nice.
concert that sticks out in your mind?
Oh,
it could be in
man.
Mississippi or elsewhere that sticks out.
Yeah, this is a good question. I'll do a Mississippi one and a non-Mississippi one just to balance it out. So my wife and I went to see Lana Del Rey, which I was
Very cool.
I was very concerned about when I went. I was like, because it was her choice, and I was like, let's see how this goes. And she was great. Lana Del Rey was really great. She came to Brandon, and we went out there and saw her. And now she's apparently dating like some dude who runs a swamp boat in Louisiana. So I have even more respect for her. Yeah. And the outside of Mississippi one was my wife was in Charlotte, North Carolina, for work several years ago. This is before we had kids, and we saw Muse. You guys know
Yes.
Muse? Yeah, and so they're just incredible live. Like I was all about that. I work out to Muse a good bit, and they were just incredible. It was at an amphitheater in Charlotte. It started raining, but that just made it better and more memorable. So those are the two that come to mind.
Solid.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love having, elected officials on. You never know what they're going to say. And Muse, I wouldn't have put
And
you
Lana
with it.
Del
That's
Rey.
awesome.
That's right.
The wide swath of music right there. I love it.
That's amazing. Renaissance man. Auditor, thank you so much for this is a fascinating, great conversation.
Yeah.
I hope everybody tunes in and listens. Thank you so much for taking some time and speaking with us.
Thank y'all for having me. I appreciate it. This was fun.
For sure. We'll go ahead and wrap things up there. Thank you to our listeners, our viewers, for tuning in to the Extra Mile podcast. You can watch and listen to episodes by visiting gomdot.com/the extra mile. Follow us on social media at Mississippi DOT is the handle. We want to thank our editor, producer, Drew Hall over there for holding things down behind the scenes. And remember to drive smart out there on Mississippi highways.